My name is Sammy, and I am the author of Trauma, a PTSD blog for HealthyPlace. Today, I wanted to talk about the importance of telling your story and owning your story, but not over-identifying with it. And what I mean by that is, after you go through a difficult trauma, you might have the tendency or the urge to talk about it. And this urge might not surface for a while. So, for instance, I went through something as a very young child. I didn't talk about it for over 20 years. And when I finally did talk about it, I couldn't stop. And I thought about all of the ways that I had been wronged and all of the ways that the trauma had affected me growing up and all of the invalidation I received when I did choose to open up about it to the wrong people, that I became obsessed with telling that story and getting more validation and getting more support. And now there's nothing wrong with that. Initially, once you get past the, processing your trauma, you might feel an empowering urge to recount your story, to share it with people, to help other people. And that's okay. That can be a helpful part of healing from your trauma. But something that I found myself doing, which became very unhelpful, was over-identifying with my story. So anytime that I was going through something, I would kind of revert back to that child who had been through what she went through. And I would use that almost as a crutch. And I would say, well, I'm feeling this way, I'm acting this way because this happened to me. And while knowledge is power, and that might have been true, I didn't stop there. I didn't stop there and think, this is why this is happening. Now let me do something about it. Let me fix it. Let me process it further. I would use that almost as an excuse to not change. And I would revert back into that victim that I really was when I was 4. Someone saw me as a victim, and I stayed in that role as I recounted my story over and over. I kept making myself that victim. Instead of talking about how I powered through it, I simply said, this is what happened to me, and this is why I am the way I am. So I over-identified with my story. I still do that sometimes to this day, and I realize that it's not helpful. It is helpful, again, to share your story with the right people, and if that means sharing it publicly so that you can reach an audience and help other people who have been through similar things, that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that's admirable. But if you're constantly sharing it in a compulsive way where you're trying to seek more reassurance, more validation, and it becomes this compulsion for you, then it can be unhealthy because you're relying on the external validation from other people, which, number one, you might not get, and number two, takes the power away from you. You're putting that in someone else's hands. So really think about how you're telling your story when you do tell it, and also think about your intention behind telling it. And try to shift it and do so in a way that is helpful for you and for others to hear it, rather than just telling it to tell it or telling it to gain some sort of validation. The validation comes from within you. It comes from a professional, and it can come from, those closest to you, your friends, your loved ones. But again, try to tone it back and tell it in a way that is empowering rather than giving your power away. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to hear more like this, feel free to check out our channel and leave any comments below.